Our podcast is on your journey. Why don't you tell me about where you grew up?
Yes, sir. I am from Florianopolis, Brazil. It's this small island, South Brazil.
Mhm.
Very different from, I guess, most upbringings. And I did music my whole life, and I moved to the States for school, and I pursued music even further. So, guess here we are. I am currently in Brazil because of the
Okay.
pandemic
Mm-hmm.
to stay with family a little bit, but yeah, that's where I grew up. Dad is always playing music in the house, gave me my first guitar, the whole deal.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I did read you got a guitar very early. You started learning at what, 5?
Yeah, man, it was a
Wow.
very crazy thing. I guess my dad was always playing music all the time. He's not even a musician,
Oh,
and
because I was going to ask that. He's not a musician, huh?
he's not a musician. I guess there was a push in that department because he, at least his kid got to be, but he
Sure.
he always motivated very early music and had instruments lying around his room. And one point I just started grabbing things and noodling and stuff, and it was like, well, I guess that's what we're doing, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, man.
So, in the beginning, were you taking lessons, or was it all self-taught even early on?
It was mostly self-taught. For I guess I'm 24 now, so I guess
Okay.
for around 10 years, the first 8 years, I was really just playing on my own and with my dad, and then I started taking lessons here and there, and it became more serious with time as I started playing more,
Mm-hmm.
but
Sure.
but always very low key and very very just, I don't know, just using my ears. It always felt like playtime rather than like I gotta study this.
Sure.
It was
Sure.
always very much like that.
That's awesome. When did you start? Like, were you performing in front of people and stuff that early on, or was it just kind of in your house?
I guess it's funny because I used to be a very shy kid when it came to playing for people. I love
Mm-hmm.
playing. I love performing for myself, like very early on. But I haven't really played until I was like maybe 11 or 12 for people like in school bands and things like that. But if you look at the old pictures, man, I'm always looking like to my shoes, and I'm like always I was very shy in the beginning.
Sure.
And at some point around like maybe 15, 16 years old, I started really playing in bands, mostly with my first band I've ever had. And we toured and we did a bunch. So that went out the window
Wow.
very, very early on. And now it's like the best, it's the best feeling for sure.
Sure. Wow. So you were 16 when your band was touring, or you just, that's when the band started?
Yeah. So when I was around 16, 15, we started playing in this. I started playing in this metal band, which was a very 15 years old thing to do.
Of course.
And we were very into it, and we were trying to take it seriously, like even early on, even though like looking back, it was very much like an adolescent fever, I feel, but it felt real.
Uh-huh.
And we started trying to get shows everywhere we could and perform. And we played for maybe 3 or 4 years, like seriously, but it was just for fun, man. I was just a teenager, and just later on I realized I really wanted to pursue this, like, oh, for real, like with my own music. I always listened to a bunch of stuff, so metal was very much like a just a starting point to play in public, I feel.
Sure.
so
Sure.
so yeah.
And the metal band though, that band would tour?
Yeah, we would tour around the like south part of Brazil. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
like a few spots and few bands that we knew that did the same. And there was one show that was pretty cool, like it was pretty big. Like we opened for Sepultura when they came over,
Wow.
but it was like, it was like one of those things, like everything lined up, like this is our chance to make it or break it. Like looking back, it's so funny to think about it. But that was like, a big, I guess, the biggest crowd I played at that point, maybe like 2,000 people, I think, something like
That's
that.
huge though.
But
That band's
yeah, it was
massive.
big. Yeah, it was big. But in Brazil, like they tour a lot. So like it was like, oh yeah, Sepultura is in town. Like, of course they are.
Oh,
Like
okay. A
everybody.
lot of bands come there.
A lot of bands, like local bands that quote unquote, broke out of Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
they're always here. Like they're more like oftenly in Brazil than out, I feel.
Okay.
So getting opening acts like that was not something, out of this world, but
Too far-fetched. Gotcha.
it sure did feel like it was, you know,
Oh,
like
I'm
sample time.
sure. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And then I did read that you also went to Berklee, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to school there. I went to school before for something completely unrelated because I guess I never, as I said, it was always like this playtime thing, and
Uh-huh.
but it was the only thing that was constant in life for sure. And
So
I
you
always
had already went
wanted.
to you already had went to college and everything and then went back or no?
If 1.5 semesters is
Oh,
college,
okay.
sure.
But
I
still you
very much
started.
I started, yeah. College in Brazil is at least the one I went to, and most of school here is free. So it wasn't like that pressure of like I'm putting
Oh,
loans in school
got
and
it.
and things like that. So I just did our equivalent to the SATs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't you take business. It's a very known stereotype here, and I just did that, and I very much knew that I didn't want to do that, so I just decided to not do that, and I
Sure.
tried to do like a summer program in Berkeley, and ended up never coming back. I did my audition there, I did everything there, and I got a little bit of money. So I was like, oh, hold on, maybe I should really do this, and
Uh-huh.
then I did it, and it's been fortunate ever since. It's been
Wow.
great.
What was your audition like?
Wow, feels like it wasn't not even that long ago, but if like being at Berkeley for 4 years, man, feels like a decade because it's so fast paced,
Uh-huh.
um I auditioned with like this fusion guitar dude, Guthrie Govan. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it was like
Mm.
got to show something a little challenging, all of that. And I very much was walking in as a guitarist. I always wrote music, but I was coming in like I want to play guitar,
Okay.
and I play guitar for a lot of the acts there, and I even had some touring opportunities as a guitarist for artists in the US, but very easily I started like kind of effortlessly transitioning into this role of being an artist and writing my own music. And I think I owe a lot to my main collaborator. His name is Jim Alexander, great producer, great artist. He's been doing really well for himself too.
Mm-hmm.
And we started making music, and it was like that obvious thing that I was missing. And right here, like right there, was I performing again, putting my bands together, and it was, man, has been a blessing ever since. Been super dope, super
That's
sick.
awesome. That's really cool. So you went into Berkeley as a guitar player and you is that where you found the rest of your band?
Pretty much. It's so dope when you get to find so many great musicians at one place, and if they're your friends, like if you're friends first, and you have that kind of like, oh, and also you're an amazing player. It's
Sure.
like it's so effortless, man. Like you put something together in a heartbeat. It's like, oh, I want to play this show, I want to play this house show, and you send music, and all of a sudden you sound like classic already because of the band. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Mm-hmm.
band makes everybody feel like you've been doing this for like so long. Everybody's so seasoned in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I put together my band. Most of them are artists in their own regard too. And we all play in each other's bands when we're in the East Coast, but everybody now started moving, like going to LA, New York, some stayed, some went home for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, it's been sick. I've been making so much music, even like in this format that we're in, with these people, and it's been fruitful. It's been cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when did you said that you kind of made a transition at Berkeley into more of a songwriter role?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, as a performer, like
Mm-hmm.
like a frontman, because I've been writing this whole time, and I wrote with people, and I would co-produce and do things like that on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was so focused on the idea of like performing for artists, because it's a real job. It's like there's real work, there's a lot of things waiting right there, that
Mm-hmm.
it felt like, again, going back to my room with my dad, it felt like playtime when I was writing with people. It was so cool and so like easy to do, and it's just so fulfilling. Like I love playing guitar, but it felt like a job most of the time. And it's even funny to say that when you look from the perspective of someone who's not a musician, maybe outside, it's like, you're playing guitar, you're playing music, you're a musician, blah, blah, blah. But it felt like a job, like in the weekends I would play, like I would play weddings to make money, like
Oh,
all of that,
sure.
bro, like all of that. So it was very much a job. and it was cool to play with the friends. But like once I was doing my own music and having my friends playing the music I was writing, it was a whole different story.
Hmm.
It was great.
Wow. Do you remember when you wrote like the first song that you wanted to, show people and be like, this is what I want to
This is
do.
what
This
I'm
is my
doing.
song. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. um it's the first song I dropped. It's called Over It.
yeah. Okay.
I did it as a I guess looking back, it felt like a test run for sure, like dipping my
Hmm.
toes in the water. And I performed it live in school before it was released. And there was like in school, there's like, some clicks and there are some things that you notice like happening, and then they
Hmm.
take bigger proportions and people talking about certain people, and oh, you should check this person out, blah blah blah. And I very much noticed like, hold on, like people are really like messing with this, like they like the song, they like me as a performer. And it wasn't even a validation, it was more of like a realization. I was like, hold on, like I felt so natural doing this, and then I just went at it, like I really just went at it, and it became the thing, like becoming a performer, like full on performer. Because in school, you always try to find your role, your place, who you're hanging with, and I was always hanging with the musicians that played for other people.
Okay.
So and the artists themselves wouldn't really hang together like that. There was like, it's a weird, Berkeley's a weird place, man. And and then ended up that all of them had a lot of their own voice and things to say. So it became its own little collective thing, where
Hmm.
everybody was playing on everybody's tracks. And it's been like that, and it's been a format, and it's been working.
Hmm. Is when you first went to Berkeley, was it kind of intimidating since like, I mean, you're around like the
Yeah,
best guitar players in every town, or best, musicians
sure.
of every city across the globe. Like going
Sure.
there where you're like, oh, like, am I gonna
I
hold
feel like
up? Like,
Yeah, I feel like that's a very, very valid and common thing we run across all the time.
hmm.
But the main thing about it, to me, at least at that time, before being like really focusing on my own music, I was very hungry because I was really unhappy with where I was before, when I was doing stuff that I didn't really care about. So I was
Hmm.
coming in like for blood. I didn't care. I could be terrible. I could be terrible. If I found out like day one, like, oh, I'm not even close to these people, I would still go like every single gym session there was, I would be there. I would go to every hang and every little thing and just be present. Like I would go to sleep every day, like 6 in the morning, because I would be the last one to leave because I wanted to soak all in all the
Hmm.
time. And it was that type of like urgency in a way,
Hmm.
because I really didn't want to feel like I was wasting my time there.
Sure.
And it's a weird thing when you start to be called for things and you start being the person that, oh, like you can play my gig and you can do that. And when you see by the end of like by my end of my stay there, I was like very much prolific in most of the playing situation there. Like people would hit me up all the time, and there would be always other 3 4 people that would be the same people being hit up, and we would switch around. So it became a thing. But it
Hmm.
was very step by step. Like it didn't ever feel like, oh yeah, this is where I should be. No, like it's always like, oh, I guess I'm here, type of thing.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. So you put up
Mhm.
Over It in 2019. Where were you when the pandemic hit? Had you already released Alone and Pocket Full of Change, or no?
So Alone, it feels like a blur right now. I guess I dropped that song in, I don't remember. I think it was already the pandemic. Yeah, because I started dropping things late 2020.
Okay.
So I was already home when it dropped, yes, but I had written it while I was still in school with people. So
Got it.
um, Pocket Full of Change and Alone were dropped, uh, I think 1 month apart from each other. But they Alone has been, I think it was written very much in the end of 2019, and
Hmm.
Pocket Full of Change in the middle of 2019. So like there were just ideas sitting around, and again, I was like, am I dropping music? Am I doing this? Like, is this the real thing I'm doing? And it's been it's been dope.
Hmm.
It's been dope ever since. But yeah, it was in the middle of the pandemic when everything dropped. It was weird. It was a weird feeling because generally we would have like a release party, we put like a
Mm-hmm.
show together, we'd do things like that, but still it felt like I felt, the response, um, the way it should. I think it would feel if it was in person too. It felt like I was doing the right thing, regardless of the validation. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think that's the best way of putting it.
All right. Well, so were you going to college? Were you still at Berkeley when the pandemic hit? And how did that like affect you? Like what went
I
on? That
was
must have
one
been
of
crazy.
those. I was one of those seniors that just, I guess college is over, like out of nowhere.
Oh
But
my gosh.
it was an interesting feeling because, um, what happened was very much around March, like right before it started like getting crazy. This community of people that I'm talking about, that we were recording a lot, we were playing like the more we ever did. We were having shows. House shows are a huge thing in school, where kind of like artists kind of cut their teeth a little bit.
Hmm.
And what happened was we were very much at the peak of all of that. We were being very prolific, and out of the sudden, when it all hit, it felt like it was going to be like a short vacation. And now
Which
looking
turned into a
back at it,
year.
literally, and the
Yeah.
thing is, I guess that's a filter that we always put in, like looking back to things, it always feels like nostalgic and better than it kind of was.
Hmm.
um but the truth is, we look back, like I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all these people. We really made the best of it. Even when it was cut short, it felt like we had our closure because of those things we were doing. Like we had like the very last house show we had was like one of the most pivotal moments, for that group, because like people were getting plays, and they're getting placed in certain, like labels, and
Hmm.
people were coming to the shows. It felt like a moment. So looking back at it now, like, yeah, it sucks that it was cut short, but it feels like this is a great way to wrap it up too, like
Sure.
looking positively. Of course it
Hmm.
sucks, but
Yeah.
it turned to be a better thing than we thought it was going to be,
Hmm.
definitely,
Well,
for sure.
now that you're home, in Brazil, and not and kind of probably away from the guys that you wrote those other three
For
songs with,
sure.
have you been working on new music? Like, how has that been?
Man, it's so this is the I guess this is the craziest part, because the fact that I wasn't leaving college and going straight to my gigs or my touring opportunities, or everything was canceled, kind of forced me to just like really low my head and write as much music as I could,
Hmm.
almost as like, well, there's nothing else to do, so I'm going
Sure.
to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I did it. And I remember even like early 2020, I guess one of my year realizations was to have like maybe 10 or 11 songs ready for the year or some. And I'm currently sitting over like 30, 40 songs pretty much that are like
Wow.
being produced, and I'm really working on, like, I guess maybe 8, 9 of those are going to be actual finished products. But I've been writing a lot, and I started producing more, um as pandemic was going through as well. Like on my own volition, I was really practicing getting better at producing music. And it kind of just happened in a way that, do you happen to know who Kenny Beats is,
I
producer?
do. I no, I don't.
So what happened was I started practicing a lot of production, and there's this
Hmm.
really dope producer, um, called Kenny Beats, and he had like a Twitch stream situation where he would show his process, because like, as everybody else, like those artists were, or those producers were looking for other forms of getting themselves busy. So a lot of them
Sure.
started streaming,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
he was one of those streaming, and he would have like maybe 5,000, 6,000 people in the room every time, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess through his Discord platform thing, I was
Hmm.
I was found, by him. Like people we were all engaging in this community, watching him stream and learning
Hmm.
tutorials and like exchanging information. And this thing happened where this one kid from Scotland once got found by him there, and he got signed to like a huge management company, and all these things start happening, and people really realized the power that that interface had. Like, oh, we
Hmm.
could really reach some people who were active in the industry. So I've been producing this whole time, watching him, learning from him. And eventually, one of my demos that I posted there for feedback and stuff blew up and caught his attention somehow. And
Wow.
he ended up playing me on stream, and now we're starting to collab on some work. So I've been doing that in the meantime with all the work I've been writing on my own, ended up being, collaborative efforts with him as well. And it's a good prospect to have during this time for sure. It feels good going back to the States soon with that side of my work being able to develop and flourish too.
That's cool. That all happened just via like Discord and Twitch. That's
Yeah,
nuts.
crazy, man. And it's becoming a thing more and more through different people who really have uh traction in the
Uh-huh.
industry, people who are very much running the game right now, top 40 charts, people who are
Sure.
producing all the pop and artists, being approachable,
Hmm.
available, like people who you can try to message or find a way of, connecting to somehow. And sometimes it works, and it
Yeah.
definitely did. And it's a weird feeling being here. I'm looking at my living room around me. My parents are walking by. Sometimes my dog is right here, and this all was happening. And it feels like a bigger opportunity that I got from all my time in Berklee. Even when
Yeah.
we saw these guys front to front doing master classes, doing all these things. And, this all happened in the span of 4 or 5 months at home. So
Yeah,
it's been
that's
very cool.
amazing.
Been
I
very
love
cool.
that. I love that these artists are doing that too. And I've said this a handful of times on the show, but
Yep.
that's this whole behind the curtain look of people, and like
Oh yeah.
you're in your house, and like, you just said
Yeah,
your
man.
dog's around, your parents are around. Like, I mean, it's so cool. I mean, we wouldn't have this experiences if it wasn't for everybody being stuck inside. And it's like, now what? You know what I
100%.
mean? But like
100%.
having somebody like that going on Twitch or Discord and actually, in real time,
Engaging.
engaging with their fans and everything, it opens up a whole door in a whole different
Man.
to a whole community of people, which is so amazing.
And I feel like one of the biggest things too is that we get an in on what are going to be the next things, like the
Hmm.
next people. Like I've seen kids that are 16, 17, 18-year olds getting real internship situations. Like there's one guy that I met there is now working in an A&R situation at Warner. Like these people
Wow.
start to, like you really are linking up with real artists, real people trying to make it in there, and people who are really about it. So it's a great situation. It's
Yeah.
a really dope thing to have during pandemic for sure.
And it's something where like these people are reachable now, so to speak. Like if this was 15, 20 years ago, you wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to find the guy's phone number or pre cell
Yeah,
phone or
man,
anything like that. Like they were such like it was
it's
just
crazy.
it's so much more far
Separation.
fetched. Yeah, and it was like the separation there was insane. But now it's like you might be able to you could DM one of these people and maybe they'll see it
Absolutely.
and respond to you, or send something in a
Absolutely.
chat or throw your demo song up in a Discord chat, and they could find
Yeah,
it and be like,
man.
this guy's dope. Like, and
It's
it's
getting crazy
crazy.
because it was a little bit of a hidden gem in the beginning. It's like, oh, this is happening here, and people don't know about it. And here and then we hear about some lurking NRs, like looking for people and
Hmm.
offering weird deals, sometimes a little shady, sometimes good, but they're there. Like now people are
Yeah.
very much aware that that's a thing going on. It
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
cool. And it's cool to see that transition, because I felt like, with Twitch and Discord, those were like video game platforms that,
It
video game
was,
streaming platforms. But now it's like, oh, well, this is a cool platform to use for my music or for
man.
my whatever.
So many producers, so many artists, like because that's the thing, right? Like as an artist, if you really are trying to live of this and subsidize all your living from it, you
Hmm.
got to split yourself in so many parts, and you got to teach, and you got to stream, and you got to like play shows, but at the same time you got to sell merch. It's like it's almost like the natural next step to go to somewhere like Twitch or anywhere else where you can kind of show what you do
Hmm.
while nobody can get out of the house. So
Right.
that's huge.
Have you been writing with people over Zoom like this at all, or collaborating?
Man, so I realized that that in itself became a very important skill because
Hmm.
I I used to do that a lot in person, and there's this almost like holistic thing about writing with people, which is very much like understanding who they are and how comfortable they are in the situation they're in, and how can you kind of like feed off of each other's energy. Like sometimes they come in with their mind something else, and then you can't really put anything together. Sometimes it's like you write a whole song in a span of 2 minutes. In Zoom, it's a whole different thing because it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of making sure that things translate better than they would, because things get lost in translation more. And I did that a lot during this quarantine. One of my main forms of like staying afloat, I guess, was doing a lot of co-productions and writing for other artists. I did that a
Oh, okay.
lot. I started getting some work through that, which has been dope. And it's a skill. It's a thing for sure. Like being able to get in that weird flow state type of situation with someone else without really being there. You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
know. It's
interesting.
something everybody's got to try to adapt to. And like, I've heard like two different things when it comes to this. Like, some people are like,
Yeah,
it's so hard. Yeah, I can't vibe off somebody over the computer, and there's latency issues and this and the other thing. But then I've also
for
heard
sure.
I get more work done because it's like I have no distractions now. It's just like, okay,
Real.
we're
That's
on the
real too.
computer. Like, we have 2 hours. Let's do this, instead of I'm gonna go grab a snack. I'm gonna go do this or that and the other thing. Like, or we're
Yeah.
gonna sit and like BS for 40 minutes before we start writing. You know what I
That's
mean?
see, that's those are all very valid points. I guess for me, and I quote my producer on this, it's a luxury to be able to write with the people you like in person. It's
Hmm.
it's a luxury because more times than often you're going to find yourself in a situation where you can't do that, and it's really hard because things get lost for
Hmm.
sure. It's never the same. It won't ever be the same. But the aspect you brought up about focusing, something I do a lot with one of my main collaborators. We generally like do what we're doing, like me and you talking right now. We get an idea of stuff, and we both go separate, and we do our thing for like an hour, and then we meet back like, okay, what do you got, and then
Hmm.
we edit it out and do that again. I think that works better sometimes than like doing back and forth, like, here's what I did, like, what do you think? And then the person listens, and
Yeah, and then they send
it,
you a
it,
track back, and then you're listening, and
it,
it's like,
it's endless. It's really endless. So we find the ways that work with different people.
Mhm.
um it's for sure a need to learn how to do it. Like if you're not going to be flexible to this, you just won't work, or you won't find things to do.
Mhm.
It's the only thing we got, so might
Mhm.
just as well learn it, for real, for real.
For sure, for sure. Well, you said you have about 30 songs finished during this pandemic. Like, what's the plan? Are you going to roll out some of these songs? I mean, obviously, a lot of people
Right.
are kind of trying to hold on to stuff, hoping that we'll be able to, that there'll be tours in October, or that's what I've been hearing, October. But
Right.
like, are you going to just roll
It's
stuff out, or like singles? What do you have coming up?
so I think once I got into that kind of kick of just making music, I was really trying to write without, it felt like I gained time. It felt like
Hmm.
I was given time to just find what I wanted to do, which we don't really have. We're always like making things to drop things and making things to drop things. And I was able to just make things for the sake of making things, which is the biggest lesson I got off of this whole pandemic. Is like, once you write without caring about the outcome, you write your best, most honest, most like relatable work. So I'm still like kind of swimming in these songs and just being like, which ones really feel like me, which ones feel like an experiment, which ones feel like that, whatever. And depending on where they fall, I intend using them differently. So, for example, I dropped a track on Bandcamp that is like 2 minutes long. I probably won't ever release it, probably won't
Hmm.
ever do anything, but I got enough support from it to, fund the mixing of some of my other songs. So that type of situation seems like what I'm gonna be doing for the first months of the year for sure. Just like showing that I'm active, dropping some things here and there, but like actual major drops on DSPs and streaming, I
Mm-hmm.
might hold on until like around May or something and maybe drop a single or two, because I'm not sure yet if I'm in that position to drop a record. I feel like it's one of those things where it's, at least for me, it's important to have uh, a group of people that you care and you want to collaborate with and get the ideas from that one source all together in one flow, and that will feel like, okay, this is a project that I identify with. Right now I feel like I'm just throwing ideas and songs in the mix and seeing which ones resonate more and less. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking into dropping a record this year,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm definitely looking into dropping maybe some EPs and like 2 tracks at a time, things like that. Different formats, singles for sure, but different formats too. Like maybe some videos. I just got this pretty dope distribution situation that I'm looking into to
Awesome.
drop a few songs. So I'm going to uh, probably get the best, I guess, 3 singles that I'm sitting on right now. Maybe do a video for those and push those out. But maybe like halfway through the year. At this point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still very much just like separating things and seeing what
Sure.
what sticks.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, and thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
Man, it's my whole pleasure. It's been really fun.
I
Been
have
really
one
dope.
more. Thank you. I have one more question before I let you go, though. I want to know
Please,
if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
any advice for an aspiring artist? Well, okay, this is not me. This is something that I always have to hear and tell myself. The only difference between an artist and a musician is a release. So drop your music. Drop your music. Drop your music. That's how you figure out what you want to do. You're never gonna know until you do it, and you're gonna learn doing it. So just drop your music. That's it for me, I think.